Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to see you here. Thank you very much for your participation in this online conference, in this online forum. It's really a privilege to see you all here, and I would like to introduce today's guest, Mr. Günther Fachlinger, who is a prominent Austrian politician, economist, who is the chairman of NGO Europe for Tax Reforms. So Mr. Fachlinger is, let's say, a prominent expert in EU enlargement processes, and he encourages, let's say, European integration and is championing an idea of big European Union. So good afternoon, Mr. Fachlinger.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invitation. And for NATO, I'm also for NATO membership.
Obviously,
That was me.
Obviously, you can't stand only for European Union, and also for NATO. Mr. Binay Singh, who is the chairman of the Federation of Global Maritime Community. Mr. Singh, he is a unique example who actually represent both Ukrainian and Indian business, and he is actually a strong supporter of idea of renaissance of Ukrainian maritime industry. So good afternoon, Mr. Singh. Mr. Reinhard Kluchik, who is the Secretary General of Pan-European Union, of Austrian Division of Pan-European Union. Pan-European Union is a prominent organization which was established 100 years ago. And Mr. Kluchik and his colleagues will celebrate 100 years anniversary since the establishment of Pan-European Union, an organization which precluded the creation of European Union and actually which elaborated many ideas about European integration prior to the Second World War. So thank you very much, Mr. Kluchik, for participating in this event.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
I would like to introduce Mr. Dietmar Pichler, who is programmatic director of a Center for Media Literacy in Vienna. Mr. Pichler detects all fakes which actually Russia propaganda tries to push about Ukraine in Western media outlets. So, Mr. Pichler, thank you very much for your participation. I would like also to introduce Mr. Ahmet Murati from Kosovo, who is the famous blogger Kosovo, and who also deals with the issues of economic and political development of European integration.
Yes. Also NATO.
Also NATO.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to introduce one more guest. This is Mr. Kaha Gogol, who is from Georgia, and he also deals with the ideas of European trade, economic, political integration. So thank you very much for your participation. And eventually, I would like to say thank you very much for all students of Odessa Law Academy who agreed to participate in this event. Thank you very much, dear students, and you also will be able to, let's say, ask questions from the speaker after the panel will be in its final state. So let's start, dear colleagues. After an event, the video from our session will be distributed among all of you. So, Mr. Fachlinger, I would like to give a floor to you with some introducing remarks, and actually you can start our discussion. I only want to emphasize that we are going actually to talk about the Black Sea region, the trade perspectives, the political perspectives of Black Sea region in terms of Russian threat, which actually now we see Russia represent. So please, Mr. Fachlinger, the floor is yours. Please activate.
To unmute here. Thanks a lot, and best regards to all the participants and the students from the Odessa University, and thanks for the invitation. I was just in June I was in Georgia, in Batumi, and I made one of my video installations about what needs to happen, that we really have to have a united Europe, that Georgia must get candidate status, Ukraine must get candidate status, that Moldova must get candidate status, and that we really have to unblock the Balkan enlargement. We have to be more united in NATO. And that was in June, middle of June. And now, because I want to start optimistically, amazing progress has happened. Amazing progress has happened at the June Council. The EU has made historic decisions to grant the candidate status to Ukraine, to Moldova. Also, it will be now, I think that will be the decision at the next council. It will be also for Georgia. It will be also for Bosnia. We have also a significant breakthrough successful in the start of the negotiation of Albania and of North Macedonia. That's another major success, which was so long blocked for a decade, basically. And now we have also almost completed the process of ratification of Sweden and Finland NATO membership. This is unprecedented success in many ways, and I'm optimistic that we will achieve even more in the next months. It's very tragic that all this progress can only come because of the sacrifice and this tragedy of the war in Ukraine. I always want to say Slava Ukraine, because we are all very much in solidarity with Ukraine. And it's the heroes of Ukraine who make it all possible, this progress in unity, because it's the reaction to this terrible war which Russia is waging. And when it comes to the Black Sea, and when it comes to the region and the stability, I'm very optimistic that we will even have much more progress in the coming months, and actually months already, when it comes to NATO membership of Moldova, for example. This was one neutral country, Moldova. Now, last week, actually, only, the President of Moldova has made it very clear in the meeting with the Secretary General of NATO, with this symbol at least, that there is this option and that they are discussing to enter neutrality and also join NATO. I'm optimistic that many other countries will also go in that direction. Malta, Ireland has, for example, a majority now of 52% for NATO. And also in Austria, we have started a petition to ask for NATO membership. That will be more complicated, but there is a movement on all these issues, which were basically even thinkable. And just 1 year ago, it was unthinkable that Finland will join NATO and Sweden, and it's happening. And we will also make much progress in these vexed questions of security on the Black Sea. On the Black Sea, I would like to say two concrete things, what is very important, because in the beginning I was very much in favor, and I'm still very much in favor of a European Odessa Forum, but this should happen inside the Regional Cooperation Council. It's so important that this institution for the security of the Western Balkans, which Mr. Buzek has created in 2008, is now extended for Ukraine, for Georgia. Moldova is already a member. So it's very important to have one platform from Georgia, Ukraine, the whole Western Balkans, to form an alliance for open Europe and a unity in NATO and the EU, that we all work together. This is so important. And there is also the second institution, which is the Central European Free Trade Agreement. I'm advocating since now 5 years that Ukraine and Georgia join. And this is really very important, because in between of the accession process to NATO and EU, it's very important to work on economic stability and cooperation between the countries, from Albania to Georgia, from Montenegro to Ukraine. And my last point, I want to open that everybody who is engaged in studying how enlargement works, please see exactly what Montenegro achieved in just a few years. 2006 independent, 2010 it became candidate country. It's now the most advanced country in EU accession, and it's basically ready for membership. And in 2017 it became the NATO member. And from the beginning, it has adopted the euro as a currency, and it joined the Regional Cooperation Council from the beginning, CEFTA. This is really the model for all countries. I know some people will say it's small. Yes, it's true. Of course, it's smaller than Ukraine, but the economic integration model works the same for big and small countries. And the things which the EU requires to join are the same for the small and for the big countries. because there's only one EU. The regulatory alignment is the same for all countries. And so I really recommend everybody to follow very closely the Montenegrin success model, currency stability, integration in NATO, and also membership in the EU. And it's not a negotiation process, it's just the adoption process. And as Ukraine has shown, in the last 6 years, they have not achieved as much progress as now in half a year of war, because simply by emergency measures, they have adopted so much of the regulatory alignment necessary for the EU. And that was really very good. So in concluding, I say, let's do it the Montenegro way. Let's win the war, but let's win the war also politically and economically, not only militarily, and that must be done institutionally. And we have achieved a lot, but let's not tire and let's not somehow get complacent, because we really have to tick all the boxes, get all the things done, work on all the memberships. And wherever somebody says that EU, NATO, Euro is not good, then he has to be identified, and we have to work together to fight such persons. Because it's very clear that all these institutions work very well, and NATO is very effective institution, because they are supporting very much, and maybe not enough, but they are supporting Ukraine a lot at the moment. And it will be also leading to victory ultimately, and I hope the faster the better. Thanks a lot for this beginning statement, and looking forward to the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pfeffinger. And now I'd like to pass the word to Mr. Binay Singh. Mr. Singh, you are a strong proponent of the, let's say, a renaissance of a maritime industry in Ukraine. You emphasize always an importance of economic prosperity of Ukraine, which will, let's say, lead to the political prosperity of Ukraine. So what are your ideas, how actually you consider economic development of Ukraine, especially bearing in mind that now Ukraine is suffering a Russian invasion? Please, Mr. Binay, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mike, for inviting, and thanks all our today colleagues, friends. It's great to have with you here debate, and thank you for Mr. Gantar as Gantar, yeah, right? Mr. Gantar. Yeah, Mr. Gantar said that we together we are great. Together we unitedly we can win. So it's great to have your now this chat, and thank you, Mike. Yeah, sure. I represented maritime, because maritime in Black Sea has played a great role for Europe, for Ukrainian economy. So during the last 7 months, Ukraine is suffering Russian invasion, and our economic development cooperation has already calculated $2.8 trillion for the global economy by the end of this year. In its latest forecast, the OECD said the global economy was set to grow by 3% this year and 2.2% next year. Before the war, it had expected growth of 4.5% in 2022 and 3.2% in 2023. Say large number. So leading economists are siding to the recession due to the difficulties with gas supply and rise in the price. At the same time, the Ukrainian economy will lose by the end of the year about 40% of GDP, according to the World Bank. To overcome these difficulties, Ukraine will need about $349 billion, which is more than 1.5 times the 2021 GDP of Ukraine. Over the next 36 months, Ukraine will need approximately $105 billion relief to address urgent needs, such as restoring education and health system and infrastructure, preparing for the upcoming winter through restoration of heating and energy to homes, support to agriculture, and repair of vital transport routes. When President Zelensky took power back in 2019. That time, Prime Minister Oleksiy Goncharuk predicted that by the end of the presidential tenure, the Ukrainian economy will rise by 40% GDP. The war forestalled the process of the rapid Ukrainian economic development. Many employees lost their jobs. I represented the global maritime community. This alliance plays an important role in the protection of rights of seafarers across the globe, as well, especially in Ukraine. Earlier, Ukrainian seafarers, they were bringing near about 4 billion to the country annually. To suffice to say, the Ukraine rank was that time 56 in terms of number of employed seafarers on foreign flag vessels. Since 24th February, Ukrainian men between 18 to 60 years old have lost an opportunity to cross the border under martial law, as we are here under martial law, and 18 to 60 is not allowed to leave the country. Now recently there is some changes, and some are able to leave the country and work on foreign flag vessels and to support our Ukrainian economy. From the beginning, there was an urgent need to remove restrictions for Ukrainian seafarers due to the fact that most seafarers who left the country without a proper livelihood. Their skill and abilities are very specific and have little use assured. Even in times of war, in addition, a majority of the Ukrainian seafarers are eager to help the Ukrainian army to resist the enemy. Even though just such a decision was introduced in August, Ukrainian seafarers still suffer from difficulties leaving Ukraine to undertake their position abroad. Unfortunately, this state of affairs benefits seafarers from Russia who substitute Ukrainian seafarers. There was earlier 15% of whole seafarers across the globe was covered by only Ukraine and Russia. Now Russia under sanction, therefore Ukrainian somehow can capture that place and workforce in a whole seafarers community. But due to this martial law, they are unable to capture all even 7% of whole seafarers' employment across the globe on foreign ships. Therefore, now Ukrainian economy suffering considerably. Each crisis always provides an opportunity. I believe that Ukraine has an opportunity to prosper and to overcome all financial difficulties. But we need a strong commitment and leadership. The Ukrainian government and international business community have to draw more attention to the Ukrainian maritime industry. Nowadays, Ukrainian shipbuilding companies are utilizing just 25 to 30% of production capacity, and the shipbuilding industry has been reduced by 10-15 times. During the last decades, such low shipbuilding capacity exhibits Ukraine's vulnerability in terms of security and damage its image as a competitive exporter. Currently, 92% of Ukrainian exports are operated by foreign vessels. Increasing the region economic depends on the international stakeholders. Recently, there is some ships can carry grains from Ukraine. There is export started, but not on that level. Therefore, it's required that in Black Sea region there is free passage of ships. Then only we can start import export of cargo, and trade will go for long. So effective reforms in naval forces would expand Ukraine's role in the Black Sea region. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and have a great debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for your thoughts regarding economic recovery of Ukraine. This is really indispensable because obviously all crises usually they bear opportunities which either person or state has to exploit. Mr. Kluchik, you are the chairman of Austrian division of the Pan-European Union. You are very well connected to Austrian politicians, and obviously for Ukraine, it's very important to understand what is, let's say, Austrian perspective on current state of, let's say, Russian invasion into Ukraine, because as Mr. Singh just pointed out, Ukraine needs huge investments. Ukraine needs billions of dollars to come in order to save Ukrainian economy and get Ukrainians prosper, even let's say in time of war. What is the mood of Austrian political elite? Are they ready to send a strong impetus to their own domestic business? Get up and go invest in Ukraine, because by investing in Ukraine, you eventually will win, because the capitalization of Ukraine after its victory will considerably rise. Please, Mr. Kluchik, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, let's have a look back to the previous years, and this was, from at least from my position and opinion, a little success story when we talk about Austrian investment in Ukraine, because there have been several Austrian companies which invested in Ukraine, but this was not so famous in Austria. This was not part of a big campaign, etc., etc. What we hear in Austria is when the big Russian connections come. Yeah, this was the big companies, OMV and Gazprom and some other big companies and famous politicians who were engaged as I don't know what, for Gazprom and other companies, Lukoil, the former chancellor, the other chancellor for the railway company, etc., etc. So this was in the focus in the media and also in the public. But on the other hand, we had small and medium-sized companies from Austria which invested in Ukraine. Not only in the western part, which has a historic connection to Austria, but also in other parts of Ukraine, just where they could find skilled people for their business they had. In politics, Ukraine did not play such a big role. I mean, you have two other speakers from Austria who will correct me if I say something wrong. But in politics, it was much more a feeling that, well, there is Ukraine, and yes, of course, it's our neighbor. And it is our neighbor was a clear message. There was no strong support politically for Ukraine, but that changed. That changed in the moment when Putin started his full-scale invasion in February this year. There is only one party which is against the sanctions. Even the Green Party and others who were not so engaged in the question of Ukraine started to support this country. So I would say, of course, you have the anti-war. At the moment, nobody will go and invest in Ukraine. You need stability for investment, otherwise it does not work. But I think that the Austrians understood that Ukraine is not only part of Europe, but also a very important part for the stability of Europe. And business needs stability. Without stability, you don't have business, you have no economic development. And I think they realized it, and therefore I'm optimistic that we find a solution for Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kluchik. And now I would like to pass the word to Mr. Dietmar Pichler. Mr. Pichler, you do really a great job. As I said in my introduction, you really help enormously in order to detect fakes, Russian propaganda, etc. But still, we see, let's say, many examples in the West of misunderstanding what is going on between Russia and Ukraine. And obviously, it affects economic situation in Ukraine. Why? Because business investors, they do their due diligence before they decide actually to invest in Ukraine, to go in Ukraine. So what is going on now in Austrian media, in European media? How can you assess the situation actually with the fake production of, let's say, Russian media? Mr. Pichler, please switch on microphone. Mr. Pichler? Mr. Pichler, we don't hear you. Mr. Pichler?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, great. So first of all, the information environment in Austria and the coverage of Ukraine, at the moment, of course, the most information we get is about the war. So this is the topic number one, and we see it, of course, it's a pressing issue also in Ukraine, because it's about how the situation escalated after February, and will Ukraine win, which I think is the only solution to a kind of environment where investments are accepted, or for the Austrian businessmen, because Austria is a country, everybody likes security. We are a conservative country, especially if it's about business investments. So it's very important how this develops. And unfortunately, as Reinhard mentioned, Ukraine is not was not an issue. Austrians discussed a lot about it. So when we heard about Ukraine, it was about the Russian annexation of Crimea, it was about Donbass, it was maybe about corruption, so many negative news, and nothing about public diplomacy, about the reform process, about how police is a completely different issue in Ukraine now compared during Yanukovych times. For instance, when I go to Kiev now, I mean, before at least last year, I saw young kids in a park drinking alcohol. First of all, it's not a nice picture. I don't want to promote that. Don't drink, yeah. But what I saw, they were not afraid of the police, and the policeman came and said, "Hey, come on, don't do it. Do it at home." During Yanukovych time, it was completely different. They took money. Everybody was afraid of the police. So it was not a living together like in a democracy. And I see that there was a lot of developments, and unfortunately, it was not covered enough in our media. And secondly, the disinformation campaign, the demonization of Ukraine by the Russian Federation, it works unfortunately very well. So we see that a lot of politicians, a lot of stakeholders, even some journalists in Austria, their coverage of Ukraine or their impression of Ukraine is based on Russian narratives, yeah. Especially if we speak about Eastern Ukraine or Russian-speaking regions of Ukraine. And some people even spread still in September 2022, still some people spread the lie that Russian language is banned in Ukraine. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah, we had interviews that were translated in Russian. I was published in Russian several times in Ukraine, but still it is very, very difficult to debunk that lies, to convince people that they are not true, that is completely made up by Russia. And I think if we speak about investments, if we speak about the image of a country, it is very, very difficult that we also share positive, good news from Ukraine. Besides the war, yeah. So what was accomplished in the last years? Yeah, the reforms, the completely different civil society, very strong civil society, young people caring about their countries, their attitude towards the European Union. I remember there was a poll that more than 90% of Ukrainians are in favor of joining the European Union. It was a poll after the full-scale invasion. And what I heard from Austrians, they said, yeah, of course, now is the war, now they want to be in the EU to be safe. And I said, no, haven't you followed the news in the last 8 years, Ukrainians are in favor of joining the European Union for a long time. Since 8 years, they made a commitment to democracy, reforms. They like our way of life. I mean, there's a lot we can learn from each other, but in general, the European Union was a symbol for many or for most of the Ukrainians to accomplish reforms, to accomplish a stable economic system, to fight corruption also. And this is unfortunately what many Austrians, also German-speaking people in general, don't know. So I think it's a mix. What we need to do now is a mix between debunking the lies and the disinformation that is demonizing Ukraine, and also spreading positive news. That is very important, that we speak about this, that we educate people about Ukraine, because unfortunately they don't know a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pichler. And now I would like to pass the word to Mr. Ahmed Muratia. Mr. Muratia, you represent Kosovo. Kosovo is also on its way to the European Union. We know that there is a serious stance between Kosovo and Serbia, and obviously Kosovo is very pro-European. Serbia, unfortunately, not. We see that Serbian politicians, especially former politicians, they actually present very pro-Russian position. Yeah. Kosovo politicians, they, in contrast to Serbian, they stand for Ukraine. So what is your perception of, let's say, regional stability? What is your perception of Black Sea regional stability? And how do you foresee the future of European integration in terms of a serious military conflict between Russia and Ukraine, bearing in mind that now Russia tries to, let's say, push fake referendums on temporarily occupied Ukrainian territories, please?
Yeah. Well, currently Kosovo is located near the Serbia. Serbia for us is like Russia, because we had the war with them. But for Europe, it is very important to have the stability in the Black Sea, because we should live together. Products from Ukraine should come to Europe. Products from EU should go to Ukraine in the same way. So we have to be united. I support both countries to be joining also to NATO, so we can have more security on our hands, not so no other countries can attack us, for example. So, but for that, but also what I think for Ukraine, what is good is to build a new railway toward the EU, so to bypass the sea corridor, because we already heard from President of Maritime that only 7% of products could be exported from Ukraine. So to overcome this, we have to make new ways to sell Ukrainian products. What I think is important to have. Also, I support joining to CEFTA for Ukraine. So Kosovo is part of CEFTA. So we have many benefits of it, because we can sell products to CEFTA countries without double taxing and everything else. So this would be good also for Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Muratia, for your contribution to the discussion. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Kaha Gogolashvili. Mr. Gogolashvili, you represent Georgia. Georgia actually is also the Black Sea country. And obviously the Georgian position, Georgia location is very important from different perspectives. First of all, we know that, let's say, current Georgian authorities, they were not quite pro-Ukrainian since the beginning of this war between Russia and Ukraine. We know that the current Georgian authorities, they try to, let's say, pursue very accurate policy. And eventually, I think this was one of the main reasons why Georgia has not received EU candidate status from European Union. Now we see many Russians who are trying to escape Russia from martial law. They don't want to fight against Ukraine because they don't consider this war as illegitimate. So what is the situation in Georgia? How do you, let's say, foresee the future development of Black Sea region? And how do you, let's say, foresee the consequences of these fake referendums on eastern and southern territories of Ukraine, and promise of Russia to annex these territories by the September 30, please? Mr. Gagarishvili, we don't hear you. Please. Okay, since there are some problems with Mr. Let's say with the
Yes. Now, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, how long? How much time I have to interview?
You have approximately 5-7 minutes to respond to this question.
5 minutes. Okay. Well, few years ago, I wrote actually a paper about Black Sea and security situation in the Black Sea, and it was in 2017 actually. And by that time, I was very I had many doubts about the possibilities of EU to continue peacefully its normative transformational policy in the Black Sea region, in the whole Black Sea region at least, because actually we saw the Eastern Partnership, which is mainly about Black Sea, of course, because Black Sea region, because save Belarus, all other countries are countries of the Black Sea basin. And actually, I saw that Eastern Partnership was very much focused on the non-military, very peaceful and transformational policies. So using EU's soft power mainly. But in the same time, I saw and I observed that Russia was increasing its hard power and its threatening policies in the region. So Russia was trying to convert the region into militarized zone with confrontations, heightening temperature in the region. And to my view, it was not already possible for you to continue just with these soft measures. And then I thought, and I continue thinking about this like that it was necessary for EU to join its efforts with NATO and EU programs of peaceful programs of transformation of the region, democratization, Europeanization, and so on. Actually, this transformation of these countries through Eastern Partnership or any other formats used, bilateral, including bilateral formats like association agreements or CEPA or any other type of agreements with the countries of the region. So it was necessary to involve more hard power possibilities, at least to detain, to contain Russia's aggressive policies towards these countries. There is also very noticeable, was already very noticeable, that Russia was directly threatening the territorial integrity and the independence of these countries, and it had some success. For example, as regards to Belarus, or Armenia, for example, Russia practically blackmailed these countries, and it forced these countries to continue to continue being dominated by Russia and continue being part of Russia's security architecture, like CESTO, for example, Organization for Security and Cooperation that Russia created. And as regards other countries like Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, those countries aspiring to become members of European Union, they were directly threatened, and not just threatened. There was no only threat of use the force, but there was a use of force as regards to Georgia and Ukraine. In Moldova, they also tried to influence Moldova through holding militarily Transnistria, part of Moldova. As regards to Georgia and Ukraine, there were the effects of annexation and occupation of territories. So I think that we don't know what will be the outcome of the war in Ukraine. If I conclude shortly my ideas. We don't know exactly. There can be different scenarios. The best scenario is, of course, that Russia accepts the defeat with conventional war, without using nuclear, of course, power, nuclear weapons, and lead towards the political change in Russia. And if Russia becomes, after this war, a normal democratic country, or at least starts transforming into a democratic country, friendly to Europe, friendly to Ukraine and other countries of the region, that would be the best scenario. But we don't know whether this is viable or not. Something may go in different direction. And at least I am sure about Ukraine to go out from this war as a winner, of course. I think that the West, with its big resource and also Ukrainian heroism, finally the victory will be on the side of Ukraine. But what will be the outcome in terms of new geopolitical architecture and situation in the region? This is not very clear. It may happen that Russia will remain the authoritarian and negative actor in the region, continuing at least not cooperating with other countries, if not threatening directly. But to my view, that it may happen that it will continue. Russia will continue even after defeat, threatening other countries like Georgia, for example, or any other country, Kazakhstan, or any other country in the region. So it may happen. And in this situation, I think what should be inevitable, that if European Union continues its integrational policy in the region, it continues its enlargement towards Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova at least, and maybe later Ukraine or some other countries of the region, it will need to mobilize itself, not only just soft is not a hard power. It's different type of organizational structure. So then it would be necessary, especially after expansion of the NATO, and now Sweden and Finland, and maybe Austria in the future becoming member of the NATO. Most probably EU and NATO will have a kind of merger, at least in foreign policy issues. They have more synergy and more acting as a two strong powers. From one side, European Union will come with its money, with its soft projects of transformational projects, etc. From other side, NATO will guarantee security of these countries. Without guaranteed security for these countries, it wouldn't be possible for EU to continue its transformational policies. So to my view, it is necessary to think out about this kind of some hybrid policies or structures where NATO and the EU come together, and they so help each other in advancing with transformation of these countries in the region. So that will be the best, to my view, best security for the Black Sea. Finally, Black Sea should convert into the European Sea. So into the sea with European values. It's not necessary that all countries of the Black Sea will become members of the European Union, but they should not be contradictory to European Union. All these countries should be either members or should become very strong partners to European Union and NATO in the same time. So that's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gagashvili, thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, I totally share your opinion, and I saw that Mr. Fechlinger as well actually applauded you for your opinion. We heard and actually we've seen a month ago when actually Baltic Sea was declared as internal sea of a European Union due to the fact that Sweden and Finland, they joined NATO. So it was very important message to, let's say, the global community, to the whole Europe, that now there is a, let's say, Baltic Sea solidarity. And I think that this is also important for Black Sea countries. But when we are talking about Black Sea, obviously, we are bearing in mind two countries. One country is Russia. We understand that now, in today's circumstances, Russia represents a serious danger to the whole Black Sea region. But obviously, many things can change in case Mr. Putin will go from power, and other people will actually, with another view, will come to an office in Russia. But also there is a country which I think its position is very important. This is obviously Turkey. And we see now that President Erdogan tries to play on different tables simultaneously. Even though Turkey is a part of NATO and has an association agreement with the European Union, we see that Turkey has its own view, let's say, on its role in the global community. So, what let's say policy can be the most appropriate, the wisest? If we are talking about Turkey, what do you think, Mr. Fechlinger, how we can deal with Turkey in the way that Turkey will become closer to European Union and will define its own agenda accordingly with the European Union one?
On the one hand, we have to have a very positive agenda towards Turkey. That means stabilizing Turkish economy, upgrade customs union, which we have already. And also Turkey is a very good partner inside NATO in many aspects. On the other hand, we have to talk very clearly to Turkey. If they continue to buy Russian weapons, this S-400, if they deliver their Bayraktars drones, these military drones, which have been so effective on the Ukrainian battlefield on the good side, if they deliver these weapons to Serbia, for example, or God may not give that to Russia, or they think they can balance everybody and work on the other side as well, then we have to be very seriously economically boycotting Turkey and talking very seriously with them. And economically, it's the most fragile country. Their currency has, I think, lost the worst performance of all European currency in the last 10 years, more or less, 15 years. And this is a competition because also the Ukrainian currency has toppled very much. Yeah? So I think it's the worst performing currency in Europe. And that is the result of very bad policy. And Turkey is only stable because we are very generous with Turkey to keep it in the customs union and so give all these market opportunities to Turkey, despite this very, very bad economic policy. So we have to have a two-pronged approach towards Turkey. On the one hand, trying us to keep it as much as possible in our in our camp, but as well making sure that Turkey doesn't think that it's the ultimate power arbiter on the Bosporus and can play off both sides. But on balance, I think Turkey has really been very, very good friend of Ukraine in these most difficult times, and has been a very effective supplier of weapons, has also helped with the grain deal. And in general, I think we should avoid bashing Turkey. We should be integrative to Turkey whenever it can in any foreseeable time not join the European Union. We should intensify and incentivize the cooperation inside NATO, because it's a very pivotal country for our defense. It has these vital straits, and it was also, to my best knowledge, they are still keeping it closed for military ships of Russia, which is very good, yeah. And they should actually continue to do so, and also block all access of Russia towards Syria. There could be more done on that one, because let's never forget, Russia is continuously waging war against the West and Western interests since 2008, when they have attacked Georgia. They have continued then to wage war in Ukraine, in Syria, in Ukraine again. And so we are in a 14 years war with Russia. We just don't call it like this. We don't declare it like this. But ultimately, Putin has declared and is waging it unilateral against our interests, against our partners, in a very brutal form. And ultimately, his resources are soon finished. I'm very clear, hoping for the breakup of Russia and for the fall of Putin. But this is obviously can take years on. We have to prepare for a long war, and we need Turkey as a partner and ally in this long war, for geographic, military, and also for many reasons, because ultimately Turkey is the southern Black Sea country, and for the stability it's vital, and also for the land access towards Georgia, let's not forget. So we could integrate Turkey much more in our infrastructure politics, in our energy politics, and in many other of our sectorial policies. And that is very good, but not as a full member of the European Union, basically also because Turkey is not ready for that, because they have not behaved like a European democracy in the last 14 years, and they have made many things. But there will be a time after Erdogan, as there will be a time after Putin, and we have to prepare for that. And Turkey will be our ally for sure, and there will be a more democratic Turkey, and there will be a very big disaster in Russia coming. When you think that there is a disaster now, you will see there will be much worse disaster, and we definitely need Turkey as an ally and a stability anchor to connect to the Southern Caucasus, to our allies in the coming future. So we need a good relation with Turkey. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetlinger. Mr. Kluchk, I would like to ask you a question regarding Turkey as well, because actually, when we are talking about Russia, when we are talking about Putin, obviously, we have to think about European politics towards Russia in the 90s, because I think you will agree with me, European Union was, as well as United States, they miscalculated, let's say, state of affairs in Russia, and I think they could be more active in terms of approximation of Russia to, let's say, a political economic process in Europe, as well as it used to be a case with Germany after the Second World War. I understand that Soviet Union collapsed. It was not defeated like Nazis Germany in World War II, but still, if European Union and United States were, let's say, if they elaborated a special policy towards Russia, maybe then it would be possible to integrate Russia to NATO and to establish some links with European Union. So now we wouldn't have the war, and we wouldn't have many deaths, and we wouldn't have the victory of conservatism and nationalism in Russia. The same is about Turkey. Turkey was knocking into the door of European Union for the last decades. And eventually, Turkey was tired of doing this, and Erdogan came to power with pretty much the same agenda as Putin in Russia. So this is a nationalistic agenda, and this is also a part of blame has to, let's say, be granted to European Union for, let's say, not allowing Turkey to become closer to European Union, not allow Turkey to become member of European Union, because eventually it could be, let's say, a political decision. No, European Union adopts frequently political decisions, like in case with Bulgaria and Romania. Yes, they're much less in terms of size than Turkey, but still we know that, let's say, Bulgaria, the standards of living in Bulgaria, they're much worse than in other Western states. Still, Bulgaria was given a chance to join the European Union. Turkey, in many ways, are different from European Union, but I think it had to be given a chance to join the European Union. So, do you see here a mistake by European Union authorities not to approximate Turkey closer to European Union?
I mean, Turkey is not a European country, not by its culture, not by geography. Turkey is a partner. Yes, it is a fact that Turkey once wanted to become a member of the European, at that time, European community, or even before that, the economic community, but made another development. Yeah? I mean, with the fact that people like Erdogan came in power, there was much more on Islam, etc., rules, Sharia, etc., support, and Turkey itself went into other directions, not into European directions. We have to face the fact, and I mean, Günther Fehlinger said a lot of important things. I underline everything. I just want to add one important point, I think, and this is the fact that Turkey is a regional power, or tries to be a regional power. So their interest is less into Europe. Yes, it's important to have good relations with them, but their interest, or the interest of the government in Turkey, is a regional interest, being a dominant power in the region. You can see the engagement in Syria, you can see the engagement in Libya, you can see the engagement in the Turk states, in the former Soviet Union. So this is the role of Turkey, and for that we need a partner, but I would say not a member in the European Union. This would not fit together. There are too many differences when we talk about culture and several other questions, but the partner, I think, is very important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuluchik. Now I would like to ask a question of Mr. Benay. Are you with us, Mr. Benay? Okay, I would like, Mr. Benay. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Benay, I would like to ask you a question. You are originally from India, but you came to Ukraine more than 20 years ago, and you permanently live reside in Ukraine, and you're doing business in Ukraine. You try to consolidate, let's say, business community in Ukraine, and you have a unique position because being in Ukraine, you still, let's say, was born in India, so you can assess many processes in Ukraine from Indian perspective, from, let's say, external perspective. But again, you have more knowledge about Ukraine than many people who suggest about Ukraine, but they live outside Ukraine. So how can you, let's say, how can you assess the role of Ukraine if we look not only from European perspective, but if we look from multiple perspectives? How can you assess the potential role of Ukraine, and which role can be played by Ukraine in terms of world affairs, please? Both political affairs, both economic affairs. Please, Mr. Benay, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Mike, actually, I am here in Ukraine 30 years living, yeah. So what I can say that as of now, Ukrainian, during this war, we have seen that in Ukraine we have a potential. We have a potential in agriculture. We have potential in maritime. We have in commercial sectors. So if I can say that even during war, Ukrainians showing the world that we are brave, we are courageous, and we have full potential. Of course, due to this war disturbed, but in this war also we see opportunity to grow our financial strength, based that understand that we have a potential to be independent, to not depend on any country. Yeah, so of course, today or tomorrow, sooner or later, this war will end, and we will see that after this war, we will be more combined and more empathetic to each other. And as well, as I say that in Ukraine, we have metallurgical also resources, chemical also. Yeah, Ukraine first, second position was before war, and in supply of vegetable were in grains. So we are feeding so many countries. And oil and gas industry also we have in Ukraine, only need to explore. So Mike, I'm 100% sure that we will win. And with our friends from Europe, from Turkey, from Georgia, all, thank you very much for your great talk and great empathy, that you are so empathetic to our Ukraine. And 100% we will win together. And then this will be a new Ukraine with full of resources, full of people-centric, I mean, from part of political leaders as well economical leaders. Yeah. So thank you very much that we all are together. Glory of Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Benay. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Gogolishvili, who is a representative, I remind, of Georgia. Mr. Gogolishvili, I would like to ask you about, let's say, the perspective in Georgia over the situation in the European Union and generally over European perspective of Georgia. We know that Georgian people, they are in strong favor for Georgian, let's say, EU perspective, but Georgian political elite is very tries to act independently, tries to again find common ground with Russia, thinking that it's possible, let's say, to it's possible to play with Russia and compromise with people in Kremlin. So before Russian invasion into Ukraine, there was a perception that Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia have to move together to join European Union. But now it seems that, let's say, Ukraine and Moldova are moving faster to join European Union. So what is, let's say, a perspective of Georgian political elite? And is this question, let's say, on the political agenda in Georgia, because we understand that Georgian government, as all governments in the world, are influenced by, let's say, business, are influenced by ordinary people. And if Georgian society says, no, we want to join European Union, we don't need Russia, then Georgian government would have to choose European Union. Do you see here, let's say, a special demand from Georgian society to move closer to European Union in the sake of Russian, in the sake of rapprochement with Russia?
Thank you for the question, for your position and for your thoughts. I think that situation is a little bit different. So in Georgia, 88% of population supports European integration. So this is very high. There is no such support nowhere. in the Western Balkans, in Ukraine, in Moldova. No other country, maybe in Western Balkans, only Albania is the country where we have 88% of supporters, people supporting European integration. But otherwise, Georgia is practically leader in this. So there is no possibility that the government of Georgia denies this path. This one thing. Second thing is that we cannot say that the government is not interested in European integration, in approaching, in getting, for example, candidate status, etc. It is interested, but it has also some fears and maybe underground connections with Russian government too. Because since 2012, the government who was led by Zina Ivanishvili, the Georgian tycoon, you know, that's from who made his money in Russia, he was trying to play with Russia a type of soft game with not irritating Russia was the main issue. So, and because of this policy, maybe Georgia has become a little bit dependent on Russia economically, somehow politically as well. But still, Georgia continues very intensively cooperating with the EU. In many fields, in majority of fields, maybe Georgia is leader in legal approximation, for example, in reforms, many other things that Georgia has done quite successfully. But in the same time, there are certain areas where the government prefers not to make full democratic reforms in order to keep its own power. So you have the situation when the government is more interested in conserving its own power than to move on with European integration path. Still understanding that if there is serious setback on European integration path, then it will affect again its chances for being re-elected. So there is such kind of very difficult game for the government also to keep their positions, continue playing with Russia, who threatens Georgia permanently. We have 2 regions occupied by Russia, and we have no defense actually against the Russian army stationed in South Ossetia and Abkhazia, which is very close. 40 kilometers from the capital, we have quite strong Russian military feist, I would say, that are ready to attack the capital even. So very complicated situation in this regard. But I can assure you that also majority, maybe 90% of Georgian population is very much supportive to Ukraine. Around 2,000 volunteers fight in Ukraine on side of Ukrainians, and they also are known in Ukraine as the most courageous fighters. So very much motivated to defend Ukraine against Russia, and they are sure, these people are sure that by defending Ukraine, they're defending Georgia as well. I think that majority of Georgian population, they proved that they are for Ukraine. And the government openly also says, we support Ukraine, we support Ukrainian independence, etc. But this kind of play with Russia, of course, damages very much Georgia's image. And I would like also to make some correction in your vision regarding the prospects of European integration. So Georgia was not given candidate status, but Georgia was given European perspective, which means that Georgia is included now in the package of enlargement, EU enlargement. There is no big difference between candidate status and potential candidate status, to my view. You can stop, for example, frame your movement on the level of candidate. Turkey is candidate for 30 years. but it stopped at some point, and there was no progress. And from other side, Montenegro, as was mentioned by in the Mr. Fachlinger's presentation, yes, it started relatively recently, and it is already quickly joining European Union in the. So there is no big difference to my view. Georgia has got this European perspective, but was denied to be given candidate status because in certain areas, and especially on judiciary, that was also about being ruled by informal ruler, that oligarch Ivanishvili is entering, somehow influencing the politics of this. Also very deep polarization in the country, and the government was reluctant to listen European Union about all these things that I mentioned during last year and a half. So this was some kind of the European Union is still interested very much, and there was a threat by declared by many people in the many high level leaders in the European Union, like Ursula von der Leyen, or would it be anyone else, Charles Michel, for example, that Georgia is very much on the track of European integration, and that EU is interested, and they always mention together Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova. So Georgia was not kicked out from this process. Absolutely, do not believe in this. And the European Union will keep its eye to keep Georgia inside of this enlargement process. But they want the government changes its attitudes, stop playing this double game, democratization, but democratization à la Russie. So democratization on a way of creating sovereign democracy or something like this. They don't want that. They want the government opens fully towards the reforms, and if it makes reforms, the reforms should be done in any, and the priority should not be keeping your own power or yourself in the power. That priority should be fast democratization and Europeanization of the country. So that's why we haven't got this status, but we have got 12-point preconditions from side of the European Union, and they are monitoring now strictly if Georgia really tries to fulfill these 12 conditions. When the 12 conditions are fulfilled, there were many times European leaders told this. Whenever Georgia fulfills these 12 conditions, we will grant immediately status. And if Georgia fulfills this, if there is possible, if the government changes, or if the new elections come and the new power changes its policy or conducts correct policy, then Georgia can anytime, I think, catch up with Ukraine and Moldova, and nobody knows who will go faster afterwards towards the Europe. Georgia, Moldova, or Ukraine. But still, we are very much in favor of keeping this trio, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, together in this process, and to keep European Union's vision of enlargement as something, the regional approach, which involves all these three countries of the Black Sea. I think that this is Black Sea enlargement of EU, where these three countries should go together and should mutually help each other. And the last remark, I think that the relations which now are not very good between Ukrainian government and Georgian government, I think these very much depend on personal disagreements. Also is related to Saakashvili and his imprisonment in Georgia. That you know that Saakashvili is very close to the government of Ukraine, and there are many personal things. But objectively, Georgia and Ukraine are natural partners, and the Georgian and Ukrainian people are natural partners and brothers. So this cannot be avoided. And finally, this will decide. So interests of two countries, which are absolutely coinciding, and the interests of two nations and two people, Georgians and Ukrainians, it will prevail, and the trio will be kept as it was sought out before.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gogolashvili. Personally, I think that the situation between Georgia and the European Union actually is described by a very succinct formula. It's not possible to sit simultaneously on both chairs. So you have to, let's say, Georgian government have to define on which chair it does want to sit. I would like to ask Mr. Pichler, because we're running out of time, so I would like to ask speakers to be a bit succinct. Mr. Pichler, you know that I always, let's say, consider you as a specialist in Belarus affairs, maybe because you are a strong, let's say, supporter of Madame Tikhanovskaya, who is a opposition leader of Belarus. At least she claims to be the leader of opposition leader of Belarus. So maybe actually with Belarus, it's pretty much the same situation like in Turkey. Obviously, Turkey and Belarus are two different countries, but we see that sometimes European Union is very stubborn to acknowledge that liberal democracies actually it's not possible to impose liberal democracy on all states. So the way Fukuyama envisaged that there will be the history where liberal democracy won against authoritarian regimes actually is understandable to be broke apart. So maybe we have to acknowledge that sometimes European Union has to come to agreement with the authoritarian regimes, like, for instance, Belarus, because in case European Union triggered Belarus, then for Russia it would be much harder to launch invasion against Ukraine without support of Belarus regime.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I would like to say something about Turkey first. I agree that Turkey, we need to have a pragmatic approach. I think we need Turkey as a partner, even within NATO, but it's impossible to forget what Turkey did the last years. I'm talking about the domestic politics in Turkey. I'm talking about the anti-Western policy Turkey is practicing, also against the US, against Europe, and we see the impact of these policies, of this propaganda in public opinion. It's very similar to Russian public opinion, actually, but very big but. In Turkey, there is a civil society. In Turkey, there are big movements of democratic-oriented people, modern people, not ultra-conservative like the policy of the AKP party. So I think there is a dynamics, and we need to keep our relations on some level in Turkey, and we need to support democratic forces there. And about Belarus, there was a window of opportunity to get closer to Belarus, and I think it's not that we closed the door. I mean, when Lukashenko wanted to be a broker between Ukraine, the European Union, and Russia, we remember the Minsk agreements and everything. But on the other hand, Lukashenko's domestic politics was very radical, and Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, they supported him. And we also saw that the UN votes of Belarus, they were not in favor of Ukraine. Also before, when he claimed to be a broker, when he claimed to be neutral, so much I like this term. In Austria, we use it very often, unfortunately. So I think, and what I would like to add about Belarus, what is very, very interesting is that there's a huge difference between Belarus and Russia. This is the public opinion of the population. I think in Russia, the majority supports the war. Maybe there is it's going to decrease because of the mobilization campaign, but the Kremlin has the public opinion under control, unfortunately. In Belarus, it's very much different. So I believe that Lukashenko was the election. He was not elected. He's not the elected president anymore. He's not only a dictator. He doesn't have the support of the majority of the population anymore. So I think we should concentrate and we should think very clearly what we're going to do with Belarus in the future, because the people there and the new government, there is going to be a time after Lukashenko, and I see maybe a bigger chance that Belarus can be a partner of the EU, a partner of the West, and a partner especially of Ukraine than Russia, because the situation in Russia is much worse. This is why Belarus, the involvement of Belarus in the war is limited. Lukashenko doesn't want to send soldiers because he knows they don't want it, they don't support it, and the population does not support it. And he saw the uprising in 2020, and we know that the Belarusian population is not so eager to protest like Ukrainians, for instance. They don't have this tradition, but still a lot happened in 2020. And I think we should keep that in mind. We should not forget about Belarus, even if what the official positions are and what the government says is terrible. I think Lukashenko is a war criminal like Putin. We should see him like that, because he is partly responsible also for the full-scale invasion, especially if it was in the direction of the Kiev region. And after all, we need to take a look what's going to happen in the future. And I wanted really to add that Belarus and Russia is not the same. And I wanted to add something else, but I forgot. So please keep me on.
Thank you, Mr. Pichler. Mr. Murati, regarding again the situation in Kosovo. Kosovo is heading towards European Union. Kosovo received enormous funds from European Union, but actually still Kosovo is out from European Union. So why do you think that your let's say EU track is reasonable to your country? Why do you think that, let's say, to obtain the formal status of EU membership is important? Because already now you enjoy almost all benefits which EU potentially can propose to you.
So recently there have been some changes in Kosovo. The government said that they will prepare the candidate applying for EU candidate by the end of year. So that's a bit of progress. Also, recently there is a appointment on October 13th for visas for Kosovo. And also other thing is that French President Macron has invited all the members of EU, also other prospective candidates, Kosovo, Montenegro, Bosnia, Ukraine, Georgia, and everything to be met during this month. And then we will discuss a lot of things over there. So I think that we will go further to EU in faster pace due to the development in Ukraine. That's why I think. But uniting with the EU is very good for all citizens of Europe, because we have to fulfill we do not have to leave gaps where, for example, Russians can come and do anything, like they did in Montenegro last year. They tried to do something, but they were apprehended. So we have to be together in an EU and NATO. So this is important for us. So EU 37 is currently a topic nowadays.
Thank you, Mr. Murati. Now I would like to ask Mr. Binay. Mr. Binay, again, you published several books, which is quite interesting about business, about politics, about business, about let's say political affairs in some way, but still it's eventually about business. So this synergy approach, which you promote constantly in your books. So is it applicable really to the political affairs? What do you think? Because now what we actually see in the world that the ignorance actually prevails over, let's say, a synergy perspective. So do you foresee any possibility for a synergy to break in, to become the groundbreaking principle of world politics? Please, Mr. Binay, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yes, of course, synergy is always good. Synergy, it means synergy. So if there would be synergy with Euro Union, USA, yeah, as well, as I say that earlier, and now again and again saying that there is a huge possibility and opportunity in Nigeria, oil and gas industry. Only there is a hole we not see with very foggy because of corruption and misconduct. So misconduct, corruption, if we wave off, there is also we can get possibility for our cooperation. I mean Ukraine, as well. You know, need to think to avoid about this Russian gas and well, all this, because if today Russia is not gas and well, so I don't think that they continue war. They have already a lot earned from this and earning even. Therefore, they are investing. Even there is a lot of sanction, and in spite of this, as I have written in my book, you know, conducting business in Ukraine during the war, there is also opportunity for Ukraine to explore another possibility, not to depend on such country. Yeah, because anyway today also we depends on gas, Russian gas. Yeah, now winter season started, and Europe and Ukraine also is somehow depend on somehow considerably. So if we explore in our country and another country, and we all sit together on table, I mean political leaders, and explore possibility to waive off all these things, then only we can see more way. Yeah, of course, as Mr. Gogolashvili from Georgia said, that this is also synergy we have with Georgia. And Georgia also already passed over same time as we are passing over now. Yeah, we are living under silence. Yeah, because we are in now Odessa, and now the Iranian drones sometimes coming and disturbing our life. So of course, we need synergy from all country and all together, as Mr. Gantar is so optimistic and in optimist, and in starting say that he's so optimistic that we will win the war, and that is a main important thing. Which how much that is level of loss or what cost we win. Yeah, as minimum as possible, that will be better, because you see in our other country are investing money and we are investing our people we will not back. Yeah, money we can tomorrow make another money and another construction, another building, but we will not make life of anyone. So we have to think about safety of life as much as possible, that we can save our Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian people. As we all know that their mobilization in Russia started 1.5 million people, and that's also threatening, and people are escaping away from Russia. So you see that where we are going, we all are moving to disaster of this earth. Yeah, but we have to save. So that's great that we all are here thinking on same page and going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Binay, last question I'd like to ask you regarding seafarers. Obviously now in Ukraine there is a martial law, and unfortunately seafarers, they can't leave Ukraine to take their positions abroad, but still this is a cornerstone, one of the cornerstones of Ukrainian economy. If we are talking about, let's say, investment in renaissance recovery of maritime industry of Ukraine, obviously, I think there is a potential in the synergy with Turkey, with Georgia, since these are three Black Sea countries, as well as Bulgaria. We don't take into account Russia, unless the situation political in Russia changes. So do you foresee any potential in this, let's say, investment synergy to, let's say, develop together between these states, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Georgia, Turkey, maritime fleet? Do you foresee here synergy, let's say, instead of competition, to increase the pie, you know?
Sure, because Odessa, we are in Odessa. Odessa is window for Europe, and from here starting Europe. I mean, in export, import. Yeah, as our friend from Georgia said that. Yeah, we have a lot of potential, and anyway, Ukrainian and Georgian, they have so much common things and this friendship. So of course, we have to explore here, and we have to think about economy more and more, that we can create, as you say, that about synergy. Turkey, Ukraine, and Georgia. Of course, in maritime, we have a lot of potential here to create in industry, even shipping corporation. And that shipping corporation will provide job to Ukrainian, Georgian, Turkey, as well. We can, because, main important thing that we have what to take from this country to another country. Cargo. Not only we have crew, seafarers, as well we have a cargo. Yeah, grains, fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals, metallurgical resources. We all have this. So only that is a matter that how we are going to utilize in future after this war. Whether we will be same, there will be more combined and togetherness will be like now, or it will be disturbed. So everything depends on us, that how we are going to create our new Ukraine altogether, or as earlier, divided. Separation will be not good. Yeah, we all should be together, and I'm sure that once we, as of now, combine and we will proceed in the same way, we will 100% win in all sectors of life, not only in war, as well in economy. And you know that as much country is stronger in economy, that is a more chance to win.
Thank you, Mr. Binay. Thank you. And closing remarks, Mr. Fechlinger, please, the floor is yours. Please.
Yeah, just now was announced fake referendums results that 97% supposedly have said for annexation. So we have to expect the most difficult phase of the war in the coming 6 weeks, because we are now in the decisive phase, and it will be an escalation because the West will react with further sanctions. They will be massive and they will be very, very strict. And Ukraine will obviously react with a new military offensive to at least liberate the Western Kherson parts west of the Dnieper, when not something more. And next week, there will be in the Russian Federation Council the decision about annexation. So we are entering in a very, very complicated phase, and I can just call everybody to prepare for that, and also prepare the population and to prepare oneself mentally for that, because it will be very, very difficult phase. Ultimately, I have no doubt on victory, but the road towards that will be still very difficult, and we have to prepare for a very long war, because I hear Mr. Singh when he says every war has some end. Yeah, obviously one day there will be some end of that, but we are much more in a constellation which is comparable with the First World War. And this was also lasting 4 long years in Belgium and in northern France. And we are going to see that kind of scenario for the long term. And I think we are far from any end of that war, because the war ultimately can only end institutionally. That means that the Western powers have to decide to take the full guarantee of Ukraine's security, meaning NATO membership. As long as we are not ready for that, there will be continuous war. And that I think will be for years to come our destiny in Europe, a brutal World War I style battle of attrition along the Kherson and Donbass fronts to come, and everybody has to prepare for that. And in the meantime, obviously, wherever we can, we must institutionally do as much as possible to integrate Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, the Western Balkans in our structures, EU, NATO, the euro, especially also the currency, in order to stabilize everybody, because long-term we win a war economically, industrially, fiscally, and that's very important to sustain this war effort economically. We need the full integration of Ukraine in the European Union. No matter what the war is waging, we need to go ahead with the preparations, and that's very important. Slava Ukraine.
Heroyam Slava. Thank you very much, Mr. Fechlinger. Thank you very much, dear participants, for joining today's panel. You're right. Actually, I just checked the results of these fake referendums, and obviously they reveal 85–90%. So basically, fake results, which Russian authorities try to present to the West. And it is funny that still, even though Russia brutally violates international law, they insist on negotiations, that they're ready to conduct negotiations with Ukraine. So we see that this is a huge challenge for international law, international, let's say, political order to get a proper response to Russian activities. And obviously, I think that it is very important, as speakers suggested, to think about the economy and to find the proper, let's say, economic and political solution to the threats which we now face, especially due to Russian politics. Thank you very much, dear participants. I wish you a nice evening, and I will distribute the video of this conference to each of you. Thank you very much, dear colleagues.
You're welcome.